massively multiplayer online game.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a nice video essay for you that took me way too much time to put together. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read a list of key characteristics and components of an up-and-coming MMO. And what I want you to do is I want you to think to yourself, what MMO am I talking about? So, first thing on the list, we've got single open world. The goal here is to have one global server where everybody's in that server. It's full loot. It's designed so that if you kill your opponent, you can take everything off their body. If you're out in the open world and you die to PvE content, everything on your body drops and stays there until you go back and recover it, and if you don't recover it, it's gone. It's designed to be a full sandbox game. It's designed so that you can do what you want when you want, and your goals and progression are very internalized and they belong to you. If you want to be the best at something, you go out and be the best at that thing. There's no guiding factor that determines winning or losing. Personal reputation matters. This is where it comes into play with your community. So you're tied to one single character. That name is associated with you. If you're got a reputation for being a scammer or a trade ganker or something like that, that reputation follows you around. It's designed around territory control, being able to claim a spot in the world so that you control it and fight over resources, and then also being able to evict your enemies from those locations and fight over important areas in the world. There's different factions and associated reputations with those factions that determine how you get to navigate through the world. There's lawless and lawful zones that determine whether or not you can be ganked or attacked by other players, at least easily. Commerce includes multiple professions that you need your friends to fully utilize. So you can't just do everything by yourself. You need friends to be the most efficient at whatever profession you're following through with. Server meshing. Server meshing exists. You can travel from one world to another or across the world with no problem. And then controversial developer background and startup. So the developers of this game had a controversial backstory and have had a lot of controversy as they've made this game or brought this game into existence. It's an aspiring MMO. It's not super popular right now, and it's working to become a big MMO. Has action and skill-based combat. It's not a tab targeting game. You can't cast spells on lock-on targets or shoot lock-on targets. It's all action and skill-based combat. You can actually go out and bounty hunt actual players. Not NPCs, but you can get a bounty for an actual player and go hunt them down. It's focused on community. So community-driven content drives the game forward. They don't really run any advertising. So with this list in front of you, can you tell me what game I'm actually talking about? The screen, it would indicate Mortal Online 2, right? I did that on purpose. No, I'm actually talking about Star Citizen. Most people have heard of Star Citizen at this point. It's not really a new topic. I've been following the game for about 10 years. It kind of annoys my wife that I was talking about this game before we met, and then the game's still not out yet. However, if you've been following the game recently, you'll know that there's been a huge amount of progress in the last year. I actually went to CitizenCon last year, and the room was electric. Everybody was very excited. But they just started testing server meshing. And what's driving me to make this video is within the last 72 hours, I've seen Star Citizen video after Star Citizen video hailing this server meshing technology as the best thing to ever come into existence. And it's groundbreaking technology. And I see comments everywhere. Oh my gosh, you don't understand how much time and effort and how groundbreaking this technology is. And I want to just tell you guys, we've been doing this for fucking years. Now, before I get into those details and talk about Mortal Online, I want to talk about the differences in these two games. There's some pretty big ones. First being the setting. One is a fantasy game, a lot like Skyrim, and the other is a space game that is, supposed to include the entire universe, more or less. The monetization. Star Citizen sells basically everything to their players up front. There's going to be a big problem with progression and how the game shapes out, especially in a sandbox world where you determine your own goals. If you can swipe your credit card to have the ship that you want, you're going to have problems. Now, I'm not bashing on it because I've got about $1,000 into Star Citizen. I haven't put any money in like 6 or 7 years, but I was a big believer, and I still believe that the game is going to be a thing, and I think the game is going to be successful. And without that funding, without that monetization model, and the success that it's had, the game wouldn't come into existence in the form that it's coming in. So that's not a bash. That's not me hating on Star Citizen. I'm just pointing out that you're going to have big problems from a design standpoint when everybody already has the things that they want. So I'd like to see them talk about things that are unique or things that have to be found or earned in game a little bit more. On the flip side of that coin, we've got Mortal Online, which is a subscription-based game. And aside from a few subscriber perks like the cape that you can get that is mostly a cosmetic, there is no other paid cosmetics in the game. There's no way to just, aside from breaking terms of service and using RMT, there's no way to kind of skip that progression. And everything that you earn in game is something you earn in game. And there's no crazy cosmetics that make you look ridiculous. So if you look at a player and they're wearing something cool or expensive or important, you know that they earned it, which is something that hasn't really existed since back in like classic WoW times when you'd see somebody in a really cool piece of raiding gear and you'd be like, oh shit, that guy like actually earned it, because transmogs aren't a thing yet. So that functionality still exists in Mortal Online. It is nothing but a subscription-based game for $15 a month, which is, in today's economy and today's game world, a breath of fresh air. There's no microtransactions, guys. Baldur's Gate got 1 million press articles about, oh, the game shipped complete and there's no microtransactions. Mortal Online also doesn't do that shit. Okay, something to think about. I also want to talk about technology and development. Star Citizen has, at this point, over 1,000 employees. I think it's closer to 1,500 at this point, across multiple different studios, across the entire globe. So at some point, Monday through Friday, 24 hours a day, more or less, there's somebody somewhere working on Star Citizen, which is fucking cool. I'm excited for that. That's awesome. Mortal Online is like 5 dudes operating out of a garage in Sweden, right? It's not that simplistic. I'm not hating on Star Vault, but they are a very small development team. And the fact that I can put them side by side in all of these different categories and compare them almost one for one with Star Citizen, which is a $750 million in funding right now, that's kind of insane. So here's a couple clips from the last 72 hours of different YouTubers talking about server meshing and why it's the newest, hottest thing that's never been done or is like the coolest thing since sliced bread.
And while this first test wasn't exactly a polished experience, it did actually work, proving that those crazy devs over at CIG have done what seems to be the impossible.
The server performance is awful on the servers that haven't just spooled up. In many cases, inputs are seconds, and on high pop servers, minutes of delay. I died 4 minutes, 5 minutes after actually dying on a 400 pop server. Not good.
It clearly isn't ready for prime time in any way. Not that it was trying to be, but missions didn't work like we saw across server boundaries, issues with quantum travel, all sorts of problems, and as soon as they upped the numbers, it fell to pieces, really.
Wow, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. That is awesome.
Frankly, there isn't another MMO out there that shouldn't like to have this kind of tech available to them, and CIG could be in a very good position to sell off some of this code to companies like Epic or Unity at some point to bolster the capabilities of their engines.
So, with these in mind, realize that Mortal Online has been doing this for years. Other games have been doing this for years. The term server meshing has been around for a long time. And often people think, oh, when you go from one WoW instance to another, or when you load into a dungeon or something, that's server meshing. You're hopping from one server. No. Server meshing is all about seamless transition. It's about loading in one time at the beginning of a session, a game session, and then being able to traverse the world going from one end to the other seamlessly while hopping across multiple instances on multiple servers. Now, I'd be lying if I said that the system is flawless in Mortal Online. It's not, and it's far from it. But something to think about is it took years and years for this system to be at the stage that it's at now. And it's at a pretty good stage. You still occasionally have errors on server node lines where you're crossing from one to another, but you can have fights on these node lines. You can have big interactions with these node lines. There's no glitching or hitching. There's no like big old jerking, screen tearing or anything like that when you go over them anymore, which it was for a while. And it took years to get to this point with a team of 5. Now, something to be excited about with Star Citizen is it's not going to take them years to sort this stuff out. They have the resources and they have the money to make this a reality much, much faster. Whether or not that's going to happen, we have yet to be seen. I mean, we're 10 years into Star Citizen development. We're $750 million in funding. There's certain problems out there that you just can't throw money at. The small handful of developers that are out there that know how this technology works, know how to implement it into a game like this, it's small, guys. It's extremely small, and these guys are extremely expensive. If money is no object, you can get those guys on your team, but it's going to take them time to get this infrastructure up and running. Will it take years like Mortal Online? Probably not. But Star Citizen, you know, that's exciting for Star Citizen, but don't kid yourself, guys. This server meshing technology, static server meshing, is going to have a plethora of problems, and it will be subjected to modern day technology. In Mortal Online, you can have fights of 300-400 players. Around 400 players, you really start to have bottlenecking issues that are determined by the server, not the players. Star Citizen will be able to figure out these problems and maybe even throw a wall of money at it to just add more servers to handle smaller areas, which would be amazing. Now, when they get dynamic server meshing, holy shit, that's when the cards are on the table. That's when Star Citizen becomes a real thing. And the community will be exploding with excitement, and everybody's going to be piling into Star Citizen to see if they can break the servers, and it's going to be great. And I'm super excited for when that happens. But right now, they're doing things that have already been done many times over by other people, and they're getting the credit that other people do deserve. Mortal Online is a great example of 5 guys operating out of a garage, Farmer Joe specifically, being able to put the world on his shoulders, and I think they deserve the credit. Now, that's not me saying that Mortal Online is the perfect best game ever. There's people in the community that will scream at me for being a simp and loving the game and shilling the game out. There are plenty of flaws and outdated philosophies and design issues with Mortal Online. It's not a perfect game. It's very far from it, and I'm a huge critic of the game. But at the end of the day, they are doing things that a company with $750 million in funding is just now starting to catch up on. I'm really excited because they have that money. They're going to be able to outpace Mortal Online, and I think that Star Citizen is going to be a game that I move into and I play for years and years and years, and I'm really excited for it. And the joke is I'm going to give my Banu Merchantman to my grandkids, right? And they're going to be like, oh, thank you, finally I can play the game. Like, that's totally going to be a thing, and I'm super excited for it. Some key takeaways that I'd like to point out here at the end of the video is, number one, I'm not trying to bash on Star Citizen. I think the game is going to be fantastic. I've been a fan for about 10 fucking years, and it's kind of part of my daily rotation at this point to just check in on the game and see how it's doing, because I really want it to be successful. The other thing that I want to point out for the Star Citizen guys who have found this video is that other games like this exist. Most people that play Mortal Online really like Star Citizen. They're a fan of Star Citizen. They're just waiting for it, like many of the other people in the world. So if you're looking for other games that have a lot of the same similar characteristics and design philosophies, check out Mortal Online. It's a game that has a controversial history with its developers, just like Star Citizen, and struggled to get into existence, had a terrible launch, has a lot of negative press around it, but generally is a pretty damn good game. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is Star Citizen is currently behind Mortal Online from a development standpoint. Mortal Online has been fully launched for a couple years now. Mortal Online just did a second relaunch when they went to Unreal Engine 5, and the game's been out for a while, and it is more or less fleshed out. There's actual gameplay loops, there's actual professions and things to go do, and progression that you can go follow through with in the game that Star Citizen currently lacks. So I don't think that Mortal Online can stay alive forever. I don't think the pace of the game and the development is fast enough to draw in a huge audience. Not every game is made for everybody. But the amount of content in Mortal far exceeds the amount of content in Star Citizen currently. I talked with Space Tomato on Discord somewhat recently, asking about Star Citizen and being a streamer or a YouTuber that wants to cover the game, what are my avenues of content creation? Like, what are the things that I can cover? And what it boiled down to was the only way to cover Star Citizen right now is be a news guy. You can stream the game, but the amount of content in there, you'll be bored in a week. And the only way to draw in actual views and an audience is to talk about the news and the development of the game. That's not a game to me, guys. That's a tech demo. And I really want it to be a game. I think this year has huge, huge potential for Star Citizen. But on the other side of that coin, Mortal is a game. And I've got, I don't know, almost 5,000 hours in it right now. So that's something to consider. So at the end of this video, if you're a Star Citizen guy that found this video by happenstance, maybe check out Mortal Online. If you're a Mortal Online guy, which most of you probably are because you're a subscriber of mine, check out Star Citizen if you haven't already. Right? If you haven't, my referral code's in the description down below. Both of us get an extra 5,000 credits when the game actually launches in 20 years. But guys, I do appreciate you sitting, listening to me talk for 18, 20 minutes. It took a really long time to put this video together. Please share it, please like it, please subscribe, do all that stuff. I normally don't ask for that stuff, but it took a long time to get into the game, record this footage, link all this together, and put it into some kind of cohesive monologue. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
My 125 Jotun, that's all I care about!